Well, hey, it never fails. Someone always asks me, hey, Heather, what about? And honestly, that's where the best conversations begin. I'm Heather Shaw, certified functional nutrition coach and Pilates educator. After walking through my own wellness journey, hello 80-pound weight loss, I now light the path through my program, The Plan, complete with protein-forward recipes, hormone know-how, and a lifestyle for longevity. This is the Exquisite House Pilates and Wellness podcast. Hey, Heather, what about? We're diving into all things movement, menopause, metabolism, and more, especially the stuff no one warned us about. I tell it like it is, but always with a wink and a hug. No perfection required, just consistency, curiosity, and better questions, served up with a side of sass. Welcome to the final installment of our World Menopause Day Symposium. You get to hear from me today, but I want to review who we've actually talked to prior to this. So before we go on, remember that we are celebrating World Menopause Day for everyone on our podcast. We want you to know all the things that we should know, could know, maybe didn't know about menopause, about aging, and how to live into the better half of our life. So we heard from Dr. Erin Adams, who is a dermatologist. She's also someone that is very much in the cause of women's health. Erin had considered going into OBGYN practice as her specialty when she was in school and ultimately made the decision not to do that, but she really has a passion for women, and it shows in the things that she does in her practice and also the things that she talks about on her platform as her personal platform. The other person that we heard from was Karen Graves. She's a tremendous business coach. She's my business coach, and she talked all about reinvention and purpose in midlife. We also heard from Trisha Mazza. Trisha is a therapist, and she helped us understand the terrain of our emotional health and wellness during menopause. And then finally, our bonus round was from Robin Lowry, who is a pelvic floor specialist here in the local Richmond area. She is a premier practitioner in the world of pelvic floor, and she was someone that I actually sought out help with, and I'm really appreciative that she took the time. If you don't understand pelvic floor or you're concerned about your pelvic floor, that is a must tune in. Really, all of these episodes are a must tune in. And then finally, we're going to go over fitness and nutrition. I feel like at times some of this becomes a broken record because I feel like I repeat myself over and over again. The thing I want you to remember in this is that as we age, our body works differently. So we stop having the ability to utilize insulin well as our sex hormones drop in our system. And then what happens with that is we naturally become insulin resistant. It's very common for us to have increased insulin resistance. We also have hyperlipidemia or elevated cholesterol. We tend to have some aches and pains, which is what we know as arthralgia. And then if we're not exercising prior to menopause, we will also see a significant drop in muscle tone. Those are all natural things that happen in our body, and we can absolutely help those and prevent those by exercise prior to menopause. It doesn't mean that once we're in menopause that we can't fix that, but what it does mean is that we have to work a little bit harder. And also, as we age, the thing we see with exercise is that how we work out impacts our hormones. So if we're used to doing CrossFit or something where we're there's a very high intensity workout, we're going to elevate our stress hormones. Our stress hormone is cortisol. That's already going to be elevated naturally through the menopause process because our body is in a little bit of chaos. And then when we add that high intensity workout, we're going to see that our body stores fat because it thinks it's in trouble. It thinks it's being chased by a bear, which is what we don't want when we're trying to maintain a healthy lifestyle during menopause. So the fix for that is that we would go ahead and stay in what we call heart rate zone 2. So if you've ever been to the gym, if you're Gen X like me, you know you've seen in the gym at some point the little chart that had the little things and it went up and you said, oh, well, my heart rate's supposed to be what based on what age? We want to stay in zone 2. So for my age range, I want to stay around 142 is like my max heart rate. So somewhere over 100 up to 142. That's really kind of the sweet spot. If I get higher than that, then my body gets a stress response. But here's what happens with zone 2 that's kind of magical, is that when we're in zone 2, we create longevity. It is very, very important that we stay in that space. And if we stay in it for about 20, 30 minutes, then we are actually helping our body understand and condition itself for longevity. Kind of magical, right? I absolutely love that idea. And I think too that the thing to know is when we do that, we're actually working smarter, not harder. When we work smarter, not harder in our body's going to start balancing hormones. We're going to start dropping some weight, and we're going to see that, our endurance is better. We notice in menopause, it's very common to have exhaustion. We don't have the same energy level that we had in our 20s and 30s. When we start to get into our mid to late 40s and then onward, we start to see just an overall decline. The thing to help with that is our slow, steady cardio. So slow, steady state cardio is where we're doing walking. We're walking for a long period of time. We're staying in that space. And what that does is magic, absolute magic for the body. When we go into slow, steady state cardio, so a nice leisurely, like you can talk, but you're still exerting yourself walk, then what we're going to see is that our hormones are balanced. Our blood sugar starts to balance, our stress level starts to go down, and it also helps with our sleep. So think about that. We're kind of in this magical spot, right? It really is a magical, wonderful, amazing kind of moment. When we go into that space and we're doing that about 3 to 4 times a week, then we start to see the body calm down. The cortisol comes down. The sleep improves. The blood pressure improves. Blood pressure going up is also another symptom of menopause. So there's lots of little things. There's like over 30 things that go into menopause. And I'll try to create a link for the menopause checklist for you guys so you can see kind of where you are for yourself and be able to advocate for yourself. We touched on that a little bit on each one of the interviews that we did. And so I'm also touching on that. If you don't see it and you want it, then you can email the studio and we can send that to you. And it just helps you kind of see what's going on with your body. And then based on what you're hearing through the podcast, you can kind of figure out, I want to go see my doctor, or I can make some lifestyle changes. So with that slow, steady state cardio, we've also got the zone 2. And then our final little kind of magic thing with fitness is we're going to make sure that we're not overstressing the body, but we want to create muscle. So how do we do that? We create muscle through resistance training, or what we call progressive overload. Progressive overload can be done in Pilates. There's been a lot of buzz lately that you can't do it. And here's the reality. In the traditional sense of Pilates and what we do, we create a very strong body. However, we are not always building muscle if we don't progressively overload the movement or the mechanism that we're moving in. So if you're in Pilates, if you're in the gym, you have to lift heavier the stronger that you get. So as things become more easy to do, then you want to beef up your resistance. You want to make things a little bit harder. And that progressive overload does what we call hypertrophying of the muscle, or building the muscle. So we break it down to build it up. Once we've done that, then we have more longevity. So as we're building muscle, how do we do that, right? Your guys are like, okay, yes, we know how to lift. We know that we need to add more resistance, but when and how much? So when is really based on you. If you're an early bird, go in the morning. If you are a nighttime girly, go at night. Now, here's the caution I'll say at night is if you're somebody like me who tends to run a little high cortisol, if you work out at night, you're not going to sleep. We want to sleep. Sleep is our magic serum. We'll talk about it in a minute. But the other thing to note is how often we're doing this. Usually a minimum of 2 times a week for strength training, for resistance training. So if you're going to take Pilates, you go to the athletic class. And if that, builds your strength, great. And once you feel like you've hit a plateau there, or you've maxed out as far as the advancement of where you are, if you're doing the most advanced class in Pilates, then start to entertain some strength training. It's not that hard to do. It's really easy to find a workout. Sitting with a local personal trainer and spending a little bit of time, a half-hour session a couple times just to get some basic workout guides together is very helpful. It's very economical to do that. And then you can go in the gym and feel confident about what you're doing. Again, we're going to lift as much as we can, as heavy as we can. So what that means is ideally, when we're lifting and we're older, we're not going to do the 3 sets of 12 reps. We're actually going to do 3 sets of 8 reps. And then once we can get to 10 reps with that particular weight, then we're going to start to increase. We're going to go up 5 pounds or 2 pounds or whatever it is. With that, we're going to see that building of muscle. So why are we talking about muscle? Here's what happens. Naturally, as we age, over the age of 30, we start to lose 3 to 8% of our muscle every decade. So by the time we've hit our 80th, we're in our 80s, we've hit our 8th decade, we are losing 50% of our muscle. And our muscle is the thing that makes our body metabolically efficient. So the more muscle that we have on our body, the better our body's going to work. We're going to stay out of type 2 diabetes. We're going to stay out of aches and pains. It's protective for our bones. Lifting heavy also helps regenerate some of our bone mineral density, which we also lose, especially as women when we lose our sex hormones. That's a very natural part, again, of that aging process and menopause process. The other thing we're going to look at when we're lifting is consistency. So you're going to be very key on doing the same things over and over again until you get good at it, and then you can mix it up. So don't feel like you have to change your workout every single time, especially if you're just lifting weights. You want to make sure that you feel good about what you're doing. And when we go ahead and lift and do the same movements over and over again, then we're able to see, oh, I'm getting stronger at this. Now I can increase my weight. The other thing that we want to talk about in all of this with the sleep and nutrition. So sleep is a key component to our longevity and our overall health. When we don't sleep, then what happens is we can't build the muscle, and we tend to crave things that aren't nutritious because our body's under stress. It's having a stress response to a lack of sleep. So that stress response to a lack of sleep and the natural stress response that we have to menopause, and if you're a little bit high stress in your life. So there's your triple whammy. You're going to have a hard time, right? So we want to avoid that by making sure that we get enough sleep. And there's lots of things out there that we can do to help improve our sleep. The biggest thing that we want to do is have good sleep hygiene. What the heck? It's not a shower, right? Here's what it is. Good sleep hygiene is consistency. So we make sure that we are not eating right before bed. We make sure that we have a lovely little cup of tea or whatever little ritual that you want to create for yourself that is fun and helps you settle in and kind of start to unwind. We want to look at going to bed at the same time every night. We also want to look at avoiding lots of blue light. So staying off our phones. I personally have a Kindle that I read because I've read for like 20 something years. I read every night when I'm going to bed. I got the black and white one that's a little more paper kind of reflection. So that works for me, and I don't end up feeling like I'm staying awake trying to read my phone. And believe me, I've tried like if I was traveling and I didn't want to take that, and then I took my phone, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is a whole thing. The other thing with sleep is that we want to, if we need it, get some help. So if you need a sleep medication, if you need a little sleep kind of tincture or a little gummy or something along those lines, a little garden gummy to help you sleep, then do that. Those things are very benign. There's lots of good medications. If you want to know more, you can reach out to me. I'll be happy to forward the information about what those things look like. That's really going to help your body. It's going to help you maintain where you want to be. Okay, so we've talked fitness and we've talked sleep. Now we get to talk food. Food is a whole nother animal when we're in menopause. Here's the thing I want you to think about is what you're putting in your body is going to either add or detract from where we are. So we want to make sure that the foods that we're eating support our blood sugar, support our Proteins support our sleep. So what does that mean? We're not going to eat a bunch of junk food. We're not going to have a bunch of alcohol. We can do some, but we want to be very careful. And there are secrets to how, or little tips and tricks to how we do those things to kind of help our body work through having that in your system. So for food, we're going to work with the blood sugar stabilizing order of how we eat. That means we're eating vegetables, then we're eating our protein, then we're eating our starches, so our grains or starchy vegetables, and then we're going to have our sweet, so our fruit or dessert. In all of that, we want to make sure that we're eating that kind of green leafy something or other at the beginning, because that helps put fiber in our body. So if you're having breakfast and you don't want to have a salad at breakfast, you can have some chia. You can make like a chia pudding. That's always really a good idea. And that gives you lots of fiber. The fiber intake that we want as we go through menopause is about 35 grams a day. Some people you will hear say 25. I like 35 because when we think about fiber, what does it do? Do you know what it does? I know what it does. Fiber is like your garbage disposal, and it pulls all the gunk out of your body. So it takes it from your belly through your digestive tract and gets rid of all the garbage that doesn't need to be there. So does that mean we want to overload on fiber? Probably not, because then you're going to feel bloated and that's not going to feel good. But we want to find that happy balance. I like 35. That's kind of the magic number. And as I work with my clients, I see that seems to be the best number for them. We see a lot of weight loss with that. We see that the body utilizes the nutrients that come after that more efficiently. So that's why we have that number. For our protein, we are looking at either animal or plant protein. And here's the thing I'm going to say that is going to be unpopular. For those of us who have been vegan or are vegan, soy is not our friend in menopause. It's a phytoestrogen, and so it's going to cause some confusion in the body. So we want to stay away from soy. We want to stay away from tofu. We want to stay away from tempeh. So you can find other tofus that are not soy-based. There's really nice lentil tofus. There's also recipes for lentil tofu that are great. And lentils are phenomenal for protein. They're kind of a perfect food. Any kind of legume is kind of a perfect food. So if you really are plant-based, that's a great way to get your protein intake and still feel like you're staying healthy and staying on your commitment to yourself of what you want to put in your body. How much protein are we looking at? We're looking at roughly 100 plus grams a day. And that's hard to get, especially if you're on a GLP-1 and your appetite's suppressed. But the more that you can look at making sure that you have that intake, your energy is going to be steady. You're going to be able to perform the way that you want to perform. And if you're exercising, you're going to avoid injury. If we go under that, then we tend to see some of those arthralgia things, or the aches and pains that come in as we age. Those tend to be a little more prominent. So that protein becomes very important. Here's some tips and tricks about how to get that in. You can do bone broth. You can do seeds. You could do like chia, pumpkin. What am I thinking of? Gosh, hemp seeds are great. Pumpkin seeds are great. Pumpkin seeds are also great because they help hormone balance. Legumes are great. And then if you want to do meat-based, you can absolutely do it. I don't have a problem. I was vegan for a long time and then finally was like, I got to have some meat. So now I'm not, but I do tend to have a lot of vegetable-based proteins in my diet. And that's a great thing to have. It's very helpful. And I think overall, you're going to see that as you make sure that you kind of keep your protein intake around that 100 grams. Again, you're going to see all the benefits from having that much nourishment in your body. Our starchy carbs. So we really want to avoid processed food as much as possible. Whole foods, things that have single ingredients, are really going to be your best friend. We want to avoid fortified grains. So anything that has added vitamins, that means that that food has been processed. So they've taken all the good stuff out of whatever grain that is and then put it back in a synthetic form. So it's not bioavailable, which means that your body doesn't absorb it. The food manufacturers do that for a couple reasons. It's easier to process the food, and then also they're meeting some FDA standards as far as nutrition requirements for the food itself to be classified as food. So that should give you a clue. If something has to have something added back to it for it to be considered food, not a great thing to put in our body. The other thing that when we're looking at starches, look at the quality of the starches and look at, based on your body, you can personalize this. So if you're someone that has autoimmune, you're going to avoid things like white potatoes. You're going to avoid grains, almost exclusive grains, like pretty much grain free. We're going to look at making sure that we use things that are less inflammatory to the body. So a sweet potato is much better for us than a white potato in that sense. Now, if you do not have autoimmune or you don't have any kind of inflammatory response in your body, white potatoes are not, they're kind of benign. They have a good source of fiber. And here's a secret with white potatoes. If you cook the potato, cool the potato, and then reheat the potato before you eat it, you've created a resistant starch. A resistant starch will help with gut health. So our gut health does get a little wonky as we lose our sex hormones. Again, are you seeing where our sex hormones kind of play a role in every aspect and process of our body? Because it does. That gut health impacts our ability to take all the junk out of our body that doesn't need to be there. So any kind of waste, any kind of filtration that comes from the liver, the kidneys, the stomach, we want all of those things to come out well. So if we're not eating enough fiber, or we're not eating foods that are going to nourish our body or help support gut health, we're going to see some dysbiosis, which is what we mean by gut lack of function. And that lack of function can range anywhere from constipation to diarrhea to somewhere in between. And we want to see a nice, happy body. You'll also see, if you listened to Robin, or if you want to listen to Robin, our pelvic floor specialist, she talks all about poop and what our poop is supposed to look like. You guys are like, oh my gosh, why are we talking about poop? Because in menopause, your poop becomes a little more important than we think. So just settle down. It's going to be okay. We're going to get through this. Let's talk now about your sweet. I personally love a sweet treat. If you don't know the sweet treat guy on TikTok, you should see him. He's so fun. He's my favorite. And here's the thing, like at some point in our lives, we're going to have a piece of cake for our birthday, for a wedding, for a celebration of someone we love. We're going to do that. That's not wrong. But where we put that in our meal helps. So not dessert first. That's the kind of sad part about it. So not our fruit first, not our cake first. We all love that. I loved doing that in my 20s. It was my favorite thing. But now as I'm older, I find that my body feels a little bit funky when I do that. And that, I would like to avoid the funk. I'd like the funk in my music, not so much in my body. So the things that we can eat that are sweet, that are lovely, are going to be whole fruits. We want to have close on our sweet, which means we're going to put a little fiber with it, fruit in its natural form. We're going to make sure that we eat it at the end of the meal, so we've gotten some fiber and some protein, so it settles into our body nicely, and we avoid a big blood sugar spike, which is always helpful. But I mean, for the most part, I think that when we eat in this food order, we're going to feel sated. We're going to feel that satiety that we're looking for when we eat a meal, and that really is ideal. So let's talk about inflammation a little bit. This is one of my hot topics. I have a real passion for this, and I also understand the struggle. I have had some sort of autoimmune condition that I've been diagnosed with since the age of 18 years old. So at 56, it's a long time to have all that kind of stuff. And I've done a lot of reading, a lot of research, and I've done a lot of the wrong stuff. So now on this side of things, as a functional nutrition coach, what I notice is that we want to and we need to help our body calm down from the inflammation when it's in what we call a flare state or where it's very agitated. Once we calm that down, then we can start to reintroduce foods and find our threshold. There is absolutely 100% a threshold with foods that are potentially inflammatory, and your body can handle them if it's built up some immunity. So if you're feeling like I eat this and I get sick, or I eat this and my face breaks out, or I eat this and I have a runny nose, or I eat this and my belly bloats, that's a clue that we want to pull that food out for 2 or 3 weeks, then slowly reintroduce one serving of something, and then give it 2 or 3 days and see if you've gained weight or you have diarrhea or whatever it is, whatever that response is in your body. And if you want to know more, we can talk more about autoimmune in another episode. It's also really helpful because there's so many autoimmune conditions that people don't even know about. I mean, there's ones that I learn about every day. So I think it's a good topic that maybe we can dive deeper into. But knowing what foods to not eat is pretty helpful. So let me give you the big guys. The big guys are dairy, sugar, grains, flour, so any kind of gluten. We want to go gluten-free if we're having any type of inflammatory response. We want to go dairy-free. Now, those two things, most people have a heart attack when I say that. Here's the reality. There are so many dupes out there. It is not 1985 when I started getting sick. It is like 2025. That's a long time to have some improvements. And there's some wonderful dupes, wonderful alternatives. There's some great plant-based cheeses that are really delicious and not inflammatory and don't have seed oils in them, so they're pretty good. There's some wonderful gluten-free breads and crackers and cereals and things that if you feel like you need to have something in a package or you have to have a piece of toast, it is available. Or if you're dying for your avocado toast, it's there. The other things that we're going to cut out are things like nightshades. So tomatoes, potatoes, peppers, eggplant, those things we're going to cut out. And here's the thing to know about those. Once you cut those out and you reintroduce those, usually you can have those a little bit. Like I can have a little bit of tomato and potato nowadays. Grains, not as much, but I can. And dairy, not very often. Dairy is usually the one that my body doesn't like. Sugar also tends to be one where I get lots of aches and pains and I can't sleep and my body's not happy. So understanding what your body does with those particular foods is very helpful. The other thing that we're going to see when we're cutting out inflammatory things to see what's going on with your body and kind of dig under the hood with regards to nutrition is we're going to cut out nuts and seeds for a little bit. And then from there, we're going to start to look at, okay, what can we add in? If you're still having some upper respiratory issues or sinus issues, then we're also going to look at low histamine foods. So surprisingly, things like strawberries have a high histamine response. If we're dealing with any kind of POTS or MCAS or anything like that, which is they're just different little autoimmune type things, we're going to want to stay away from that stuff too. And you'll see, once you go through that, you'll start to see. And this is something we do on my program, The Plan. We go through each type of inflammatory food, we pull it all back, and then we slowly add it back. And so then you know what you can and can't eat. We also eat really amazing food. So everybody's kind of a little bit worried. I know it's like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to enjoy food again. Not true. Not true at all. There are so many recipes, and if you watch any of my social media, you'll be able to see I do meal prep Sunday pretty consistently. On occasion, I'll skip, but for the most part, you'll see some recipe inspirations. And then as people sign up for my program and they go through, they get lots of recipes. So whether you're on the plan, our full program for functional nutrition, or you're on our Quick Start program, which is our medically supervised weight loss program, both of those you get to receive some recipes and see what it's really like to eat delicious whole foods. My background being having a little bit of like a catering background shows a little bit of like where I have a love for food. And so I never want people to feel deprived. I like to have dessert. I like to have yummy little foods. I like to have bread once in a while. I like to have crackers. I like to have dip. I like to have apps, all the things. So why wouldn't we have those things and still be healthy? We totally can. I think we just forget that like life isn't about salad and a piece of chicken when we're trying to be healthy. There's so much more food there. Um, the other thing to think about is how often we're eating. A lot of us who are Gen X, we've learned that we were supposed to eat like every 2 hours. And what happens as our body becomes insulin resistant is that it doesn't give, when we eat every 2 hours, we don't give our body the ability to digest. And so our blood sugar stays elevated. When we give ourselves 3 to 4 hours between meals, then we have the opportunity to let our body go through that full digestive cycle. And then when we eat, our food is more bioavailable. The other thing that does is that keeps our blood sugar a little more stable. So it goes up with the food naturally, and then it comes down, and then it goes up with the food naturally, and then it comes down. And if we're eating in food order, then we're not spiking it too terribly. We're just having a natural response to putting something in our mouth. And really, those are the things that I think when we're looking at all of this, we want to make sure that we're doing. I think that too often we get concerned about, am I eating too much? Am I eating too little? Probably yes, we're eating too little, especially if you're Gen X. That's a great place to go in this next part of our nutrition conversation, is that when we are looking at food, how much do we actually need to eat? So the rule of thumb that I do is based on science. We look at your activity level. We look at what your age. We look at kind of where you are in life, and those things play into how much food you actually need. So if you're a very active person, you work out every day, you walk every day, you're you're getting somewhere between 10 and 12,000 steps, you're probably going to be close to about 2,000 calories. And that sounds awful to somebody who's Gen X, who was like a 500 calories a day was like normal. No, it's not normal. It's actually starvation. We're not doing that. All of us spent too much time contributing to Live Aid and all of those things that help with starvation. And at this stage of our lives, we're not starving our bodies anymore. We don't want to do that. So what we do want to do is be intelligent about what we're putting in our body. So the science behind that is what we call our TDEE, our total daily energy expenditure. We're going to look at that. And then we're going to look at our BMR, our basal metabolic rate. So those two numbers are scientifically equated based on the things we just talked about. And those are going to give us the calorie gauge of where we need to be. There's usually a range. And then based on your activity level, we're going to be in that range somewhere either up or down. So the other thing we're going to look at is if you are exercising and you're in what we call a calorie deficit because you want to be strict about losing weight, then we're also going to make sure that we're using those scientific equations so that we make sure we're getting the right number, because usually we're at our kind of basal metabolic rate plus 500 or our TDEE minus 500. So there's kind of a range right there. But we want to be careful about what we're doing so that we're not actually under eating. And here's what happens with that, guys. So the science behind under eating, those of us who are Gen X, we didn't care. We just wanted to be skinny. Thinness was a thing. Now we know that longevity is about muscle, and the more muscle that we have on our body, the longer that we live. So our quads and our glutes need to be on and popping, and we can get them there. But where the heck was I going with all this? So under eating, when we undereat, we actually put our body into starvation mode. And when we go into starvation mode, our body's going to hold on to everything. So if you're a person who is historically undereaten and you've eaten low calorie because you think that's going to be healthy, what happens is that we actually become either A, skinny fat, or B, just fat. That sounds terrible, but here's the reality. Your body's holding on because it doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know when it's going to have its next meal. It doesn't know when it's going to have its next nourishment. So it's either going to hold on to the fat or it's not going to be able to hold on to the muscle. So if you've ever seen someone who's very thin, but then they go to the doctor and they're like, oh my gosh, my doctor was so mad at me because they said I don't have any muscle, or, those are the things that we want to be really mindful of. Exercise is key and keeping that muscle on. And then our nutrients are key to keeping that muscle on. So the more that we are consistent with those things, the healthier we're going to be, the longer we're going to live, the happier hormones are going to be, all of that stuff. So that was a lot, but probably never enough. It's never enough when we talk about nutrition. There's always something more that we didn't cover. There's always something that somebody has questions about. And we'll keep talking about this. But I really wanted to say thank you for listening to our World Menopause Day Symposium. If you have questions or you want to start on one of our programs, that's the thing we didn't talk about. Wait, hold on a second. We have to talk about GLP-1s. So we just launched last month our in-studio Quick Start program. So that program actually is available nationally or worldwide. You can use us. We have a nurse practitioner who's supervising all of our weight loss. And what we do is we do use a GLP-1 medication for folks to just help them kind of get over the hump. And here's what we found is that statistically, in the clinical trials, they're starting to see that in menopause, that inflammatory response in the body makes the body hold weight. And so when we combine hormone replacement therapy with GLP-1 medication, then we see a really great response and people are starting to lose weight, which, I mean, for all of us, we're like, oh my gosh, I want this 20 pounds off, right? We can do it now. And that's part of what we're doing with the Quick Start program is we are helping you figure out how to do that with this support. So that medical support allows for the body to not be so insulin resistant. It helps for the body to start to use things effectively. It helps to bring down the inflammation. It also helps manage cholesterol, manage blood sugar, all the things that we've been talking about that our body naturally kind of flips out with menopause. The other thing that we do with our Quick Start program that's different from just obtaining medication, like if you had your doctor prescribe it or if you got something from a telemedicine group, is that we actually help support you. So we have weekly check-ins with you. We have education via some lifestyle tips and tricks. We also have recipes for you. All of those things help with making the real changes that are going to make this last. The other thing to note is that if you're in studio and you're wanting to do Pilates with this, you can go on the plan, which is our full program. We do have a portion of that to do. If you want to do this and you're not in the Richmond area, you are more than welcome to sign up for the telehealth aspect of this. You need to get cleared by your nurse practitioner, and then from there we can disperse your meds to you. And that you'll still get that amazing support on the other side of this. So you still have access to me. You get to talk to me and ask me lots of questions. And I'm here to help you figure out how to live your best life with those medications. And then also, live healthily. Because here's the reality. I have a whole bunch of folks who are on this program. And I have several who don't want to follow an eating routine. And so what happens? I get calls, texts, emails, FaceTimes of, oh my gosh, I ate this and then my body freaked out. And I'm like, really? Your body freaked out? Did you know that was going to happen? Didn't we talk about that? And they're like, yeah, but I didn't think it was true. And the ways that your body freaks out is not fun. I mean, you've all heard the horror stories of someone who's on a GLP-1 and then they're sick, right? They're not just sick. Sometimes it's Montezuma's revenge. I mean, come on. We do not want that, right? So that's what I want to say is that you can't just take these meds and think that somehow you're magically going to lose all the weight you want to lose, and then you never have to worry about it again. If we're not supporting what we're doing by making lifestyle changes, by exercising, changing our food, we're not going to have results. It's going to be exactly what everybody says. Oh, I went off the weight and the medicine and I gained weight. You will. You absolutely will. And here's the other thing to know is that if you're making those lifestyle changes and you're on the medicine, you don't have to get off. There's nothing that says that you have to get off. when we talk to or look at or study all of these things, and these medicines have been around for 20 something years, these are not new, they're just new in the application of weight loss. What we see is that folks have a lot of improvement on all of their kind of base metabolic panel. Their cholesterol goes down, their insulin sensitivity increases. All of those things improve because these meds were designed to help work with a body that wasn't working well. So when your body works well, then we can talk about having a little fudge factor, having a little something that maybe we wouldn't normally eat when we're trying to be healthy. And that's the other thing to note on these meds is that you will absolutely, if you eat something that's too fatty, that's too sugary, that's too rich, you will get sick. I tell the story all the time. My husband and I went to Europe and we got home and we had a 3-hour car drive from the airport that we had flown into. And we were starving and we were exhausted because we'd been up like probably 24 hours. So we drove home and we said, okay, there's a McDonald's. I know I can get a Diet Dr. Pepper, which is my favorite, like little guilty pleasure. So if you ever know, that's it, my Diet Dr. Pepper. So we got a Diet Dr. Pepper, but I also got like a meal and I ate the meal. And then we got home and I was sick. I mean, everything that I ate came right back up. It was not cute. So that's what I mean by you really can't screw up these meds. I mean, you can't just think, oh, I'm just going to eat whatever I want. Your body will tell you this is not okay. We're not tolerating this anymore. I'm not available for this anymore. So that's part of the reason why I feel very strongly about having some coaching help in the nutrition aspect of working with these medications. You don't have to feel like you're doing it alone. And I think it's really important to know that, you know, you gain a community. There's a club out here of all of us who have a jab and a stab, and it's life-changing. And I think that when we make the decision to do something for ourselves that is going to be healthy, then we need to commit to that. And that, you know, we talked about that in another episode of the podcast where discomfort was part of what we looked at of like, how much discomfort can you stand? Well, this is part of that is, are you willing to go through the discomfort of maybe not eating your favorite sweet treat that really your body doesn't want because you're wanting to change the way that you look and feel and you want to change how long you live based on where you are in your body? Like your doctor may have had that conversation with you. I'm not here to judge you. I'm just here to help you. I'm here to hold your hand and say, hey, we're going to get through this. And I've made the mistakes so you don't have to. You may, but I mean, you don't have to because I did it. So I'm like, hey, don't do this. So yeah, all that said, I think we've covered a lot. My gosh, you guys, this was a big conversation and probably one of the longest I've done ad hoc where I haven't had my script in front of me, but this is stuff I know. And if you have questions, please reach out. Please let us know. And if there's something that you want me to talk about more in depth, let me know. And if this was helpful to you and you go, oh, I know so-and-so would like to know about this, share that. Share this with the people. The people that you love and care about, don't keep it to yourself because that's the only way that we get better, right?
Well, hey, it seems like Ain't Nobody Got Time for That is the theme song to life these days. So thank you for being with me today. I really do appreciate you. And thank you for asking the question, hey, Heather, what about? I hope something in today's episode sparked a shift, a breath, or just a moment of, oh, that's for me. If something resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with a friend, leave us a 5-star review, and help more people find their way to us. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss a minute of real talk and real transformation. Ready to start your wellness journey? Visit theexquisitehouse.com to join us in the studio or check out The Plan, our signature program for movement, nutrition, midlife, and transformation. Remember, keep asking questions. I'll be here with answers and maybe a reformer spring or two.